is up, guys? EJ here, back with another video, and today it's going to be something a little bit different. It's going to be my 31 days of horror, days 1 through 6. Obviously this time of year, during the month of October, horror fans watch movies all month leading up to Halloween to get them into the spirit, and they talk about them in videos or they write blogs about them. And last year I did a 31 days of horror for October for the first time, and I had a lot of fun. So I'm going to be doing it again this year. Last year I watched a lot of old films from the 30s and 40s, lots of Vincent Price from the 60s and 70s as well, and a few films in the 2000s that I hadn't seen. I tried to focus on films that I hadn't watched. But this year I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm still doing some old movies that will be in this video covered today, but I'm going to be doing some more contemporary films, some more stuff from the 80s, a little bit lighter fare, and I'm also revisiting two big horror franchises that we all know and love. If you want to check out the list of movies that I'm going to be watching, you can go to the link in the description. It's posted on my Facebook page. I wrote a note prior to October starting what movies I'm going to be watching, and if you want to check out what I'm going to be doing, you can see it there. So I'm going to break it up into like 5 parts. It'll probably be 5 videos each. They're not going to be exactly 6 or 7 days, depending on the block. You should be able to tell by the blocks of on the list when the videos will come. So up first we have days 1 through 6, the films I've watched so far. And if you are friends with me on Facebook, you know I've been watching the old Invisible Man movies. So up first, day 1, I watched Todd Browning's Freaks from 1932. Todd Browning, of course, directed the original Dracula from 1931 with Bela Lugosi. Freaks is an interesting film, sort of a standalone movie. Sort of a tale of the grotesque, all about these circus performers, these sideshow performers. It's really about a trapeze artist played by Layla Hyams, I believe. She's a regular human, she's a trapeze artist, and she sort of looks down upon all these weird looking and freaky circus folk, and she basically hatches a plan to sort of make fun of a little person in a really mean way, and they all get a revenge on her at the end. Some of the characters in this film I really can't even believe. You have the standards like the bearded lady and the like strong man, who you don't see the bearded lady very much, very little in fact. But it's the other characters that really sort of put you on the edge, because they're very weird looking. There's these sort of small people with really weirdly shaped heads. They're quote called pinheads. The one guy who has no arms and no legs is just a torso and a head. I don't get how that guy's even alive. At one point he lights a cigarette, which is really interesting, and doing it with no arms, no legs. And there's one guy who has no legs, and he sort of walks around like this on his hands. Yeah, it's just really interesting and sort of unsettling film, classic from 1932, Todd Browning's Freaks. Okay, on the second day I watched the one of my favorite Universal horror monster movies, and that's the original The Invisible Man from 1933, of course directed by the great James Whale, and starring the awesome Claude Rains as the doctor who just wants to be left alone. He's turned himself invisible and comes to a small town, into a sort of watering hole, a pub, an inn, and he just wants to be left alone so he can figure out the formula to reverse his invisibility. Yeah, just a great movie. I love Claude Rains' performance. The drug has turned him mad. He's going around killing people left and right. It's not just about the guy in bandages and the eyeglasses. The special effects in these Invisible Man movies are really good when they actually show you the invisible stuff. It just works great, and it looks great for the time it was made, obviously in the early 30s. Yeah, fantastic Universal monster horror movie, and always been one of my favorites. So I also watched all the sequels that come with this, the Legacy Collection. I have all the Legacy collections of all the Universal monster movies. So on the third day, I watched the first sequel, which is The Invisible Man Returns from 1940, directed by Joe May and starring, funnily enough, the great Vincent Price, who I watched a lot of last year, and Cedric Hardwicke. Vincent Price plays the doctor. He escapes from jail and comes back, turns himself invisible, and basically is turning mad as well with the drug. And it's very similar, sort of, in story to the first film, because the other films are quite different, in fact. And a lot of these like sequels in these old Universal horror movies, especially the Mummy series. Those Mummy sequels are all pretty much the same, if you ask me. Same sort of with the Wolfman as well. But yeah, on the third day I watched The Invisible Man Returns with Vincent Price. So on October 4th I watched the third sequel, which is called The Invisible Woman, also from 1940, directed by A. Edward Sutherland, starring Virginia Bruce and John Barrymore. Much more of a comedy than a horror film is The Invisible Woman. It's about a lady who's sort of a fashion model. Uh, she answers an ad by the doctor, who says he can turn anybody invisible, and she basically uses it to get back at her boss, who treats her and all her co-workers like crap, basically. So it's an interesting movie. Not as good as the first two, and definitely not as good as the first one, of course. But it's a fun movie. It's very light. Yeah, definitely more of a comedy than a actual horror film. Okay, up next on the fifth day, October 5th, a couple nights ago, I watched Invisible Agent, or The Invisible Agent. I'm not sure exactly if there's a "the" in the title. It sort of depends where you look. The Invisible Agent was made in 1942, so it's very reflective of the time it was made during World War II. So it's actually more of a World War II, excuse me, sort of World War II spy thriller. At the beginning of the movie, these Germans and a Japanese spy come to the good doctor, who has the formula for the invisibility, and they try and take it from him. They try to buy it from him, and they strong arm him in his shop. He's like the grandson of the former doctor way back, even though it's like 10 years later, after the first one was made. Um, he's played by John Hall, plays the main character. So these guys come and try and take it away from him. So he offers his services to the U.S. government to become invisible and become a spy. So they drop him into Nazi Germany, and he has to find out through these various contacts when the Germans are planning to attack the U.S. Sort of in full, with bombing missions, and then eventually troops on the ground, something like that. Obviously, that never happened in real life during the war, but there were talks about it, I think. So yeah, it's an interesting film. As a fan of World War II movies, it's just really cool in general. The film also stars Ilona Massey. She plays the very sultry German double agent, sort of, who he hooks up with, and the great Peter Lorre plays the Japanese spy. Peter Lorre is great in this movie, Invisible Agent. Got some great sort of one-liners and very sinister, very cool. So I really liked The Invisible Agent a lot. Probably my favorite of the sequels. Yeah, and there's a great shot of on some covers of posters, you see John Hall in the sort of excuse me, sort of in the SS type uniform, but without any facial features. Obviously, because he's invisible, it just looks so cool with the black, like, Nazi cap and the uniform. Yes, I really dug Invisible Agent. So last night, October 6th, I watched the final of these Invisible Man. Um, damn, I don't know what it is about the coughing. I need a drink. I watched The Invisible Man's Revenge, made in 1944, also starring John Hall in the main character, but he's playing a different character. In this film, he's a fugitive on the run. He's come back to claim his property from his former partners, who sort of shut him out. They believe he was dead. That's it. They thought he was dead, but he hooks up with a doctor who has the invisibility. I can't say invisibility very well today, either. Formula, and he turns himself invisible to sort of take revenge on his former partners. This one was much more of a horror film, much like the first one and the first sequel. But yeah, those two in between aren't really horror movies, but they're interesting to watch because it's the Invisible Man series. So those are the first 6 films I've watched so far. Yes, these are from the 30s and 40s, but up next I'll be moving on to more contemporary stuff from the 60s and 70s, and then the 80s and so on. So thanks for watching and checking out this series of videos. It'll be about 5 of them, like I said. And as always, yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see ya.
Bond. James Bond.